Hey there. Hello, all of you good people and creative entrepreneurs out there. It is Tuesday, May 11th. Gotta say a hello and happy birthday to my mother. Without her, there would be no me. And I am Saudia Davis, the director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. It is my joy and it is my pleasure to come to you a year later. We have survived a pandemic. We have continued to educate and empower creative entrepreneurs against 9 sectors. And today we are talking about design. I'm really excited. I cannot wait to introduce you to, for those of you who may know Norman Teague, and as well with Max Davis. No relationship, not even a cousin, just special. But before we get started, it's really important with the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. We are a pilot program of Arts Alliance Illinois, which is generously sponsored by the Coleman Foundation. And with all that we're got planned coming up for this summer, I just want to tell you a couple of things. Very excited a year ago in partnership with Verizon, Northwestern University, Project Explorer, and 7 middle schools throughout Chicago, we are going to have a Street Code Jam Fest. That's right. June 12th, we are taking 7 schools, 7 crews who are learning how to code through a new technology called TunePad developed by Mike Horn out of Northwestern University. And while they're learning how to code, they're also making beats, which is pretty fantastic, right? So we're talking about teaching individuals not only how to code, but how to fish. Because once you can code, you know what you guys can do. We can build things. We can build websites, we can build technology, and we're starting them young. Very excited to bring that to you through our partnership with 2112. We will host that event live for your viewing. So stay tuned with us. And then also, August 14th, we're gonna have our first ever Reframe. It's a creative industries conference. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's not South by Southwest. It will be at 2112. It's not even Sundance, but what it is a conference that will spotlight and showcase creative entrepreneurs against our 9 industries to support and grow the creative sector. So with all that good news, be sure to check in on our Center for Creative Entrepreneurship website, click under events, and there you will find these meaningful events that I just spoke about. Every week there's something out there with our partnership organizations. But in this moment right now, I want to show you Norman Teague.
Design history was not my favorite. Class after class, it was very frustrating. A level of relevance is always key to capture someone's attention. And I couldn't find that historical figure that looks like me. How do we change that? My name is Norman Teague. I'm a designer educator from Chicago, Illinois. The world of building allows me to ask an object to do something that it hasn't done before, but also incorporate a story that is less told. The semi-stool started with looking at Black life, looking at culture. In this class at the School of the Art Institute, I was challenged to think about venting as, getting something off of your chest. What could we do prior to venting? And I thought about the word chill. So I started to investigate informal ways of how people relax, leaning on a car, leaning on the back of a couch. And I settled upon this motion that could intrigue a person to approach it, but also that was really inviting to anyone. Seeing that this thing went from a sketch to now a tangible thing that was acquired by the Art Institute of Chicago has a whole new layer of value, because I work with a lot of young designers and people that are close to me in my community to really give opportunities. Being here in New York City next to really historical pieces, these guys are part of those history books that I used to read about. It's kind of dreamy. It's definitely a little like, okay. Design history needs to reinvent itself in a whole lot of ways. Your world is the history that you read about. And if you're wrapping your head around things that really say that you don't belong here, then we have to create other books or we have to create another world.
Ooh, all I can say is welcome. Welcome, Norman Teague.
Thank you, sis. Thank you. Very happy to be here.
How are you feeling today? I mean, that's a pretty impressive video.
I'm feeling great. And I think, yeah, the video hits it on the head. It says a lot about the work that I do, why I do it, who else needs to be doing it, which is everybody, because that's all a part of a story that somebody else will be influenced by.
Right. You know, I think you saying it's dreamy is it's something to be said about, you know, when we're young or when we have an idea and we start to imaginate and dream. Talk to us a little bit about, I mean, I know the video captures that, you know, looking at the history of design, maybe you didn't see yourself, but before you even got there, like, tell us a little bit about either Little Norman Teague or something about you that maybe nobody else knows.
Little Norman Teague was running the streets constantly. I used to fish in Sherman Park. That was my pastime. And I started drafting in high school. And that is my first and foremost introduction to my earliest thoughts of design, which had a lot to do with engineering. And I had a good hand and great penmanship. And it stuck with me. You know, it was the thing that outside of, you know, wrestling and playing basketball and floor hockey that I saw as a career choice when it was time to think about next steps. You know, I'm going to college. I went to the military. I was a National Guard shortly, and then I went to college, and I was like, well, I'm going to stick with what I'm good at. And so that really opened up a lot of doors for me because at a college level, you know, you're kind of lost. You have all these things you want to try. So I tried that. And it started in architecture. And I worked in architecture for about 10 years. And then I discovered the wood shop where a drawing could become a tangible thing in a much shorter time, or at least a thing that you could hold in your hand and start to think about. And that tangibility meant a lot to me at a young age. So I stuck with it. And I had a wood shop before I got out of college.
You had a wood shop before you got out of college?
I had a wood shop before I got out of college and I had jobs, which was really phenomenal.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask next, right? Because, I mean, you've just outlined a pretty incredible, you know, sort of trajectory, you know, going to the military, going to college, knowing that you were going to do something that you were good at. These are all key factors for my entrepreneurs who are out there who are checking against, are they on the right track? But this is interesting. Talk to us a little bit about how, so you came up with the tangible thing. How were jobs coming about and how were you able to get your first workshop?
Oh, wow. Well, it was definitely not creative work. You know, it was like, I'm opening up a restaurant. I need 32 tables that fit this size, that size. I need a bar built, you know, and because I could use my hands, and don't get me wrong, I didn't know exactly what I was doing in these times. So it was a lot of figuring out as you go, depending on partnerships. And the rest was kind of, you were being paid to learn the rest of it. You know, that's kind of the secret of like having the knowledge is you have people that are supporting you to go further with it.
Nice.
And that was enough to keep me, I mean, out of college, with a shop, getting work. That was enough to motivate me. And I think it's kind of still my motivation.
Well, you know, that's some good motivation because I'm thinking now, though, you know, from the business standpoint, and that's one of the things with the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, it's the point at which somebody decides to go into business, that information is a sweet spot. We're taking it from being the creative to actually putting it into a place to monetize whatever your creative ability is, right? So did you, and as you mentioned, you're like figuring it out. Did you have a logo then? Like, it doesn't, yeah? Oh, tell me.
I did. It's the same logo I got today.
Okay.
It's a little equal sign. Here it is. It's a little equal sign.
Yeah.
And it says, and a lot of it has to do with like equality and equity and, moving upward in that trajectory. So, and that's the one I stuck with. It's always been the one that says all that I'm trying to do within the work that I'm doing.
Well, you're doing really good work, not just in the business, but also in the community. And I want to share with our audience here, and I'm going to remind them, this is your opportunity to ask Norman Teague any questions, ask us. Feel free to put it in the chat. But right now, let's take a look at how your business has extended into the community.
Oh, this is from 2000. Yeah, this is way back.
A lot of questions as well, because we want it to be as much a help as possible. What are the things that you think need to happen in your neighborhood? And majority of the answers were, I need a job.
When I was a kid, there was no vacant lots around here. It was just packed right here, and I miss it. Like I'm glad I could come back to it, but for years I've watched it go down to what it is today, which is probably 60% vacant lots. As much as I can, I want to be able to be a part of this rebuild. I just remember life, like busy. It was it was ours. It wasn't, the vibrance you get in Lincoln Park, but it was our vibrance. It was community. People knew each other. People took care of each other. People looked out for each other. It's been a big change. That's all. It kind of hurts to watch it, and it just seems like, what are we waiting on?
There's so many young brothers and sisters out here that didn't want to finish school, and now they are like not even a part of society anymore. So why not sell drugs? Why not? I mean, I ain't going to school. Like, I ain't good at that shit. Why not sell drugs? Or like, is there any possible way to replace a gun with a drill? My idea is to get different demographics into one room and think about a product and how it's made from beginning to end. Not knowing what the end result is going to be is the most exciting part, I think. And so I'd really like to take a space that's comfortable for the people from that community, in that community, and think about how products affect the world around them and how they can be involved in that process. I see the young men that I work with as my biggest competitors in the future, because once you learn to do a skill set so well and people are coming to you and asking you to build things, there's a level of respect, first of all, that goes along with it. But then secondly, I think that you can't help but think, well, why am I going to go work for anybody?
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
That's you. Nice, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
That's good shit. It really is. For a number of reasons. Just because Southsiders, Westsiders, we see the differences in our city.
Yeah.
And I think that as designers, I think if there were more designers, more design thinkers, more construction workers, more plumbers,
Yeah.
to hell, I think there would be a change in the spaces that we live in, and it would be easier for us to get the equity that's needed to improve upon these spaces. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was brought to my attention, in the film space that, there's a producer in Michael B. Jordan's show 61st Street is shooting here in Chicago. And one of the executive producers mentioned that, like, you only got like one black electrician? Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole gap of opportunity, and these are huge paying jobs. Same thing with plumbing and electrical and builders. And speaking of builders, we're going to get to Max Davis here soon, but you're talking about how you're impacting a community. You mentioned putting down a gun and grabbing a drill.
I mean, major, that's the impetus of what I'm trying to say is how do we put better education, and the problem with, Chicago is I wasn't introduced to design until I got to college. And pretty much, I didn't know drafting meant design, gave me the capabilities of changing, the dimensions of something or building a chair or a house or anything. I was like, this looks like a place where I could do some work. I think I'm pretty good at it. So connecting the dots on all of that, I just think that we have to be more influences within our neighborhoods, but also bringing that education back to our neighborhoods. Like we need to better our schools. We need to introduce, very important subjects into schools and to our children at a much younger age, like as soon as possible, so that they can start to think about, where they're going with their futures as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. That's key, because just the introduction, I asked you, what did little Norman Teague want to do? Because, when I ran a nonprofit foundation for children, we did a study which we found that children at the age of 9 pretty much determine their future, right?
Sure.
So we can get them early and kind of show them some things, definitely show them how to be somewhat independent. It's pretty critical. And, when we're talking about building in blocks and making those connections at an early age, it's not too far away from what we do as adults. And so it's really exciting that you've shared some of this part of your journey. And one of the things that I think it's important for our professional designers out there, not everybody gets to make it into the Art Institute, right? Where built something, you've created something, and then there's some recognition. And I just want to I want to cue up this video, because this talks about how technology shines a light sometimes on those of us who are not in sight. So we'll put that there for you.
Uh-oh.
I last spring saw an Instagram post by Zoe Ryan, then at the Art Institute of Chicago, of this Sinmi stool, in particular, a black one like the one on the right here.
Okay, we got a little buffering. It happens. So, one of the things that he's going to say here, and we may or may not see it, is that he identified your piece by going online, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that, we don't have to, I was going to say we don't have
to go to the next slide, and then we're going to kick in with Norman and Glenn. I last spring saw an Instagram post by Zoe Ryan, then at the Art Institute of Chicago, of this Sinmi stool, in particular, a black one like the one on the right here in the photograph, that they had acquired for their permanent collection. And not at the time knowing anything about Norman, I sort of looked at this and said, my God, this could be totally, something that Isicon might have tried out in 1939 when they were at their most whimsical with Egon Reese. Or it's something that could have been in the Atonet catalog in the early 1900s, like the footstool that Adolf Loos did at the time. It seems timeless, it's modernist, but I looked at the title, the Sinmi stool, I read the description, I went onto the Google machine and suddenly I learned about Norman Teague. And I started to realize that the community that he's part of in Chicago today had some similarities, especially given the politics and everything that we're going through right now.
You know?
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, James is good at that. And I think technology plays a big role in all of the advertising that we do today. Like literally it's you don't print out a flyer anymore and drop it on people's doorstop. It's
Right.
literally and it's kind of a beautiful thing, but it gets a little much at times. But I'm happy to have run into James and R& Company. They've done some good PR for me. They furthered the PR, so it's working out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, speaking of it working out, and before anything can work out, you actually have to build, right? You got to let's
get into it. Where's my man?
Let's bring in part of the team here with Max Davis. Welcome, Max.
There he is.
How you doing?
Good. Happy to see you here. So,
am I breaking up? Am I? Because I'm.
Yeah, don't move too much. You'll be fine.
It's one of those things. The technology is a thing. We'll have you tell a little bit about yourself. If you have to drop out and come back in, that's perfectly fine too. Sometimes it just kind of reboots itself. So Max, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you come to this conversation.
Okay. I like to build things. Yeah, pretty much. It was something that's hard to build. I'm excited for it. That's what I'm looking for.
Nice.
Do I keep going? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing.
A delay. Should I come in there?
Yeah, you definitely have a little bit of a delay. I might say.
I'll try to go towards where Norman is.
Okay.
Yeah, you can sit next to me.
Yeah, go sit next to Norman. That's perfect. Yeah, because you guys are in the same studio.
Yeah, we're right around the corner.
Okay, cool. Now, Norman, is that the same studio that you said that you acquired right after college?
No. That was a long time ago. Sorry. That was a long time ago. That was at 500 West Cermak, where honestly you could find a number of artists that got their start there, like Fahim Majid, Theaster Gates.
Okay.
Who else? Tony Smith is there. Okay. Lowell Thompson, like all these really great, amazing artists of color, all in like one big mush. It's over on 22nd and Cermak, like 22nd and Lumber.
Absolutely. I get it. But here's what's interesting. It sounds like that was a co-working space of enormous proportions in terms of what was incubated in that moment.
Yeah, there was a lot happening back then. So quite amazing. And yeah, I think there was a ton of growth that happened as well, because I'm next door to Theaster Gates, who's not the Theaster Gates that everyone knows, but still a super important and impressive part of my growing as an artist, as a maker. Fahim Majid, again, full of flavor. He was a metal worker mostly back then, but just being amongst all these artists of color, having a drink at the end of the day or collaborating on projects was always like the top of my day or night. So, those were the mighty impressive days. And until this day, all of these guys are still friends and cohorts that are doing things in this city, making a big difference. So it's good to be a part of it.
Well, I mean, that's pretty cool. You know, the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship is based out of 2112, which is a co-working space on the north side. And we have creatives from all industries that drive up to us. And one of the things that we know is that there's this, what's called the theory of random collisions, right? Like the thing and the resource that you needed might be across the room. And oftentimes that happens. Like I'm like, oh, you know, I want a time lapse camera on the build out that we're doing for the Comcast Business Startup Studio. And I go to the kitchen one morning and it's like COVID situation still. And I'm like, who's this? There's like a guy running a cord through and I need to get to the, excuse me, like, you know, what's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. I've got a time lapsed 360 camera in the room capturing the development of our Comcast Business Startup Studio, which by the way is free for entrepreneurs to use. And it was like, whoa, I had that thought that morning and boom, there it was right there. And so I can only imagine, knowing who you all are as artists, that was a tremendous opportunity to lean on each other, learn from each other.
Yeah. And still till this day, that's who I call. Those are the same cats I call when there's a big job and I don't know how to quote it, or there's a big press moment and I don't know how to, or even it's a class and I'm just like, I got this class and I just don't know where to take them or what to do with them. And you know, so you got to have that system to lean on. You know, you got to have that group of brothers, sisters, mothers, aunties, cousins. You know, I love it. You can't. I can't survive without it. So
none of us can do anything at the scale of what I'll speak for those of us who are builders, who are creatives, who are entrepreneurs. We need the help of others. Speaking of which, is Max Davis somewhere next to you?
Max Davis is in front of the camera. You can come over here.
I think I might have access to here.
Okay.
There's going to be what we call there's feedback. So Norman did the right thing. He muted himself. So Max, let's try. Nope. Yeah, he's either got to stand right next to you or like pull up a chair, pull up a Sydney. I don't know. What's happening? We're going to unmute you now. There we go.
Cool. So nice to see you, Saudia. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. I mean, here's my fascination. Like, wait, you're incredible on your own. I want you to tell us who you are. And then to find out you work together, I'm like, whoa, slow down. So Max, talk to us a little bit. We had some technical difficulties and I want people to know who you are.
Oh, cool. I was trying to say before, I just like building things pretty much, you know. Come to me with the hardest thing to build and I'll be happy. You know, give me a challenge.
Background?
My background? I'm an architect. I majored in architecture, and then I did my concentration in digital fabrication, and my minor in digital fabrication, my concentration in responsive systems. So I just love robots pretty much. I think about one thing, and it's robots.
Where'd you do that? Where'd you study?
So I studied at Cornell University. So I just, whenever I say that, people are just like, ever heard of it? And I don't talk about it.
I've heard of it. Come on. Oh my God. Like come on, you guys, like Cornell University.
Yeah, ever heard of it?
Throw that off. Like, that was nothing.
Totally. But it's a good time. And so Norman came to me with these, you know, designs, you know, and that's part of why I don't normally talk on things like this, because it's his work. He did the work, you know, and then it's just a matter of trying to figure out like what's the best way, you know, to reproduce this. How can we do all that?
So I'm gonna add to that, because you know, to come up with an idea, it's like all of us, like we're all creative people. But to come up with an idea is one thing. To actually put that idea into the world, it takes a number of steps, iterations, problem solving, And this man right here, I could not have done I couldn't have done a lot of things without meeting him. And since I've met him, life is much easier.
That's all I want. That's all I want in the world.
So don't let him underplay that because his work is major.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I would absolutely agree with you. You know, I had the pleasure and the unique experience of meeting Mr. Max Davis doing a presentation of a very unique home build that I had. That like Max, you talk about robots. Well, I don't know. You dropped in an idea in my head. I never forgot about it. And these are Quince. I can never say it.
The Quonset.
Then I roll up in Detroit on these Quonsets, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the community, you know, like this is true north. Yeah. And those of you guys who may be curious, like, what is she talking about? Google True North. Google Quonset. Anyways, I don't want to give up the secret sauce, but you know, this is something that I've talked to Max. I'm really excited about the potential of, you know, living in one of those and, you know, knowing someone like you who can actually build that. So,
absolutely.
So Norman, I appreciate you sharing that, you know, in this process of design, right? The value of a thing, it creates and has to be created and made, and that takes collaboration. So talk to us a little bit about how you work together.
So it's I kind of want to show you a little bit, but it starts with a bunch of sketches that I do out of my like free time. I'm thinking about what's next. What am I going to do next? And then I get it as close to what I really want with some dimensions on it.
Yeah.
And then I say, Max, don't say no. Please don't say no, Max. And I show it to him, and he thinks with me about the best way to like put a dovetail together, or you know, so thinking about how to do it on CNC, but also thinking about what parts need to be cut by hand, what needs, how much upholstery needs to go into a thing, how much leather needs to be purchased. So all of that is a conversation that the two of us kind of share in.
Okay.
It's a brainstorming session, and 9 times out of 10, I leave disappointed because Max has told me that I can't do something a particular way. You got to do it this way. But it usually comes out. I think I'm always looking for sexy, and Max is looking for like logic and practical. Practical, yeah.
100%.
And but he lets me go really, really crazy, and then you know, and then we wind up making it. And sometimes it doesn't work, but so far so good. It's been great. The Silver Room is one example of that. Abere was a big part of that, my design assistant. And of course, Future Firm, the architects. But all of that was one big collaborative conversation that happened in order to get all those things done in a very short amount of time.
Wait, so talk about that, because you're mentioning, Eric, you're mentioning the Silver Room. So tell us a little bit about what you're speaking on.
So Eric Williams, the owner of the Silver Room in Hyde Park, came to me along with Future Firm and asked me to build this design that was due to come to life in less than 3 to 4 months. This kicked off in January, and I think the store opened in June last year during COVID. And so all the time during COVID, we were working in the studio, making the new Silver Room kind of happen, working back and forth with Eric and the architect. But Max was the fabrication guru on pretty much that entire project because there was so much to cut in so little time as a digital fabricator. I'd love to hear him talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, so Norman, Eric, Future Firm, they came to me with the designs, and I just stayed up for a week or so. I just pumped it all out. There's a lot to do in it. Somebody gives you a drawing, and you need to come back with renderings. You need to come back with pieces that fit together. Prototypes and all sorts of things like that. So it's a process, but it involves everybody, and I'm always happy to do my part and just deliver something that's perfect. That's where I'm at. It's just I'm so OCD about everything fitting together perfectly, and I think that's what you need to be in this business.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, the question that you were saying before about how does our process work, I think it's kind of good to show them what's on that board too.
Yeah.
In a sense, but it basically goes from drawings like this to renderings to real life. So we've got some renderings behind, and I don't know is that ready for the public?
It's shareable. I mean, everybody sign a NDA real quick.
No, I mean, here's the thing. You don't even have to show it, but that's just kind of cool to see. But really, I mean, thank you for being so open to sort of show that your space is workable, right? Like I see the coffee machine in the microwave behind you. Then you've got drawings, literally, right? And then you've got your renderings. Like that's a fully integrated working space. And believe it or not, for people who are trying to figure out how to take their business, their idea to the next level, there are some that'll say, well, don't fall in love so much with the idea. You got to market test it. And one of the things that I think is interesting for you as designers and as builders and architects, right, is that you create the thing. It's a question of how people embrace it. And I got to say, Max, we're happy that you're like super OCD.
Absolutely.
Nobody needs to fall off of that SIMD chair.
Right? Yeah, I'll make sure it all stays together and it all fits. So and I think that's part of like what's really great about working together. Like I walk in sometimes and Norman's got a bag of feathers. And I'm like, what are you gonna do with those? What's going on? Like what's happening with that? And but he turns it into something beautiful. It's crazy. That's definitely it's what we do is both design, but Norman is he's on another level. He's fantastic. So I can't say enough.
Right.
Well, it's like where the magic happens, right? Like just to be a fly on the wall and see all of those ideation come to fruition is just fantastic. And, one of the things I think, I just have to celebrate you guys. You live in Chicago. When the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship was established, we were looking at, we have all of these different sectors where there are highly world-renowned individuals who live here. And if they don't live here, we've lost them to the coast because they felt that they needed to leave. And our whole goal was to show that you can live here, to retain that talent and provide as many supports in order for an individual in a creative sector, in business, to feel that they can build here. So I not only celebrate you guys, but you also celebrate you for staying here, right? Yeah. I mean, we started off the video, Norman, I think maybe you were in New York talking about, or you have shown in New York.
Yeah. The pieces are in New York, and it was really an honor to show work in New York. But I'm back home like this. So I love that there's a market there. There's great people there. So I have a ton of great friends there. Max is from there. So the connections were great, and I look forward to more. And I just appreciate having Max by my side, because he no matter how crazy it is, he never says no, like not straight out no. But he does look at me weird, and he questions. He questions me with his eyes.
I've learned that when I question it, I go home and I think about it. I was like, all right, he's right. That could work. Just like, all right, well, It's a little workaround, and then
Yeah.
we got it. So
And it's sexy though that it's it's really coming together, and the projects are getting bigger,
Yeah.
and they're staying fun, and it feels like we're getting paid to be creatives. I think the best moment that we've ever shared was me, Daniel Overby, who's another past design assistant.
it's fantastic.
He's really awesome. Bere,
Awesome.
who is also phenomenal. We were all in a room together and standing around and looking at each other and saying, wow, we're in a all black design collaboration right now. And for us, that was really like a moment.
Something different.
It was
sure.
completely a moment. We've all been the token inside of a design firm, but to have like 4 black people standing around in charge of a design project was like celebrant for us. We wanted to like have drinks.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great. It feels good.
That's really great. And one thing I will say, and as I've shared with my team, we have a unique administration here in Chicago where this particular mayor has really made it a mandate to include artists. And what I mean by that is that, if a developer is developing in a particular area that maybe through the Invest Southwest, that developer must hire an artist from that zip code to be a part of that development and pay that artist, right? Like that's a really, really impactful thing. Then there's, I think it's called Chicago 77, which is honoring the 77 neighborhoods in the city and looking at art projects across the city, south, north, west, east, all of it. I'm right now tasked with reviewing for the first time grants through DCASE. And it's one of those things where it's like, wow, there's so much talent here. There's so many individuals and so many organizations that I can't wait for people to learn about and to be spotlighted. Now, you guys are remarkable because you've tapped into the art world. If we could just speak a little bit about that, Norman, because one thing that is really important to me in our sector of visual arts and design is for individuals to understand that there's a business of the art world. There's a business that supports designers. Like it amazes me, like, we look at these magazines and we see certain designs, right? Just because you create something doesn't mean that it'll value at a certain level. And not to say that we want to take the creativity away from the value, but these are objects that over time, in some cases, like the video that we started out, you've already started to change that history because the market, if you will, has acknowledged your work. Can you speak on that a little bit? Just the market, not necessarily the work.
Oh, where do I start? It didn't really hit me until like really thinking about the study of history and like who really wrapped importance around that history. Because, when I look back on art history class, they wasn't talking about, Black people. They weren't talking about Black art. They weren't talking about Black issues. And I felt like the artwork had such a presence and representation for a particular time in history or in Chicago or any part of well, we studied a lot of European art and and I just felt like if we continue to leave that shit as representation for us, then we'll go for another 100 years without still not seeing Black people represented in those positions. And so I just, for me, I just stomp my feet and make sure that my work is seen, and scream at the top of my lungs, because I feel like if we don't get that representation now, it will never start. But yeah, I'll cheerlead for every Black artist I know, and and that sort of writing, uh, exhibitions, and I think all these artists need to be paid for this work, which thank you, Lori Lightfoot. But I also think that we need to take record of that. We need to celebrate that. We need to buy that Black art, because you know what happens to it in 50 years? It's the only thing that you can purchase in the world that actually starts to appreciate every day.
Every day.
Every day. Your car, it loses value. Your computer, it loses value. Your artwork, it continues to rise.
That's right.
And that's why so many Black artists are being collected now, because it is now part of the market. So we just need to write and buy more of it.
I'm glad you mentioned the educational piece, because the reality is, and I've heard this on several talks with gallerists, curators, visual artists, is that the art history that we learned didn't incorporate us. And what I often say to young people is that if you don't see yourself in the room, don't be intimidated that, oh, well, I don't, this is not. No, if you don't see yourself in the room, then you're missing.
Right.
And it's not easy to always be the only one, but I tell you, over time, somebody has to step in that space. You have stepped in that space. The built objects, we're calling them objects, not furniture, people.
Sure.
And I want to be careful to clarify the Simney stool. Before we get out of here, I just want to say we've got some individuals who are watching us live. I've said, don't be quiet. You have an opportunity in this moment to ask a question or to drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So anything that we should keep our eye out for?
We got a new line coming.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we mentioned the Africana rocker. That one is just insanely beautiful. So we got a lot of stuff coming. We're really excited. I don't know.
We got a new brand. It's you'll see it at the Bronzeville Winery. That's
okay.
We'll definitely release some images.
A lot of furniture coming.
A lot of new furniture coming. So
thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Eric Williams. So yeah, keep an eye out on. We got a whole line of products. We're working on a brand called Titobi. In the Yoruban language, Titobi means great or big, large, huge. And so we are gonna put a number of products inside of that in the coming years. It should be around for quite some time.
Titobi.
Titobi, Titobi.
Titobi. I like it already. So what I will say is be sure to let us know. We will definitely post on our social media channels. We do that, right? Like we actually promote 80% of already curated programming that's out there with our partners. And then we sensitively figure out the market, find gaps, and curate the remaining 20%. So as I mentioned earlier on the upfront, that we have our Reframe. It's our CCE Reframe first annual Creative Industries Conference. That's going to be people doing really cool shit. Like that's the benchmark, right? So we'll talk offline about that, because we're a global organization. We happen to be based here in Chicago. We have some global individuals and entrepreneurs that we like to intersect with our local community here. Again, a lot of the conversation that we've shared here today, it's happening in other states. Same conversation is happening in other countries. So we encourage all of you out there, if you have questions or if you're inspired by what you've seen today, drop us a note. at the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, but also know that there are individuals around you who can be of great advice. I mean, that's one thing I want to say on this last video, right? Because I think the work that you're doing in the community is impactful. So we're going to take a look real quick, and then we'll come back to you before we wrap up. Stay with me.
Cool.
Good morning. My name is Norman Teague.
Oh, not this one.
Yeah, that one. We're going to pull it up to a full screen.
To take this building, polish it up a bit, and turn it into a design studio and fabricating space. We actually plan to have a nice public cafe over here that can actually have a view of the fabrication that'll go on in and around me. We'll have some public events that'll happen on the grounds outside. Here is our design studios, and this will be more making space, model making, fabrication, dirty stuff downstairs, clean stuff upstairs. I think that this will increase a certain exposure that needs to happen in communities of color to design as a profession. As a kid growing up, studying architecture, I found myself to be tokenized, and a big push of mine is to just expose architecture and design to communities of color to increase the amount of Blackness that we might have in architecture and design today. I think more than anything, communities of color need to access equity to make more money at what they do and have more to do within those neighborhoods. So we'll create jobs, we'll create design, we'll create fun. And so it's really awesome to make time to think about the changes to come.
There are a lot of changes to come.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful building on South Chicago that I've been chasing after. So keep your fingers crossed. Anybody got some donations, bring it on. Anybody want to partner, bring it on.
Yeah, I will keep that in mind too, Norman, because there are some opportunities out there. And that is a beautiful building. The way that it was pitched with the light.
Oh,
that's what
man.
it's called.
Yeah. What's it called?
Yeah,
I forget.
Skylight.
Oh, the skylight, but
Gabled skylight. Yeah.
yeah, there may be an architectural name for it. Well,
Probably.
you guys, huh?
I said probably.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I hope you've had fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Did you have any questions? No questions?
I don't see any questions. I've got 9 folks watching live, but this is something that we do. We tape live in order to have some engagement. But if we don't, that's okay, because it lives forever on our CCE YouTube page, so individuals who may present a question around design, we'll send it to them and then they can watch it, or if they're curious. The other thing I think that I just want to touch on, because the last video really spoke on it, and it was equity, right? And inclusion. And these are a lot of people are talking about that. There are a lot of corporations that are making adjustments in their corporation where there have been blind spots in the past.
Sure.
Right. And my thing is, great. Okay, your eyes are open now. This is what we're here for. And the more stories that you have to tell, the more yummy and juicy. It's like a stew, It's not anything with just chicken stock. You got to drop a bunch of different things in there to make it taste good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you're good. You're so good.
And so all that we're dropping in design, we're dropping in architecture, sweet to Toby. I cannot wait to see what that collection looks like. So we will be sure to let everybody know when you've got it, share it with us so we can put it out there for everybody. Thank you. I will say it too for you, Norman, and for Max. Thank you, Madam Mayor Lightfoot, for shining a light on all the neighborhoods and giving our literally beyond a voice an opportunity to work, get paid, and to create and to leave a lasting legacy. That's the one thing that your objects, that's one thing that is so beautiful, is that not only are they a living, lasting legacy, there, you get to interact with it. You get to sit on it, lean against it.
Yeah.
It becomes part of the family. It's in the
you pass it down.
Pass it down.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for this time. It's really great.
Thank you, Norman Teague. Thank you, Max Davis. Let me let y'all get back to creating. I know when we first jumped on, I heard a circle saw or something going in the background.
We're working right now. Absolutely.
Well, let's let them get back to work. Let's make it a great week. Thank you so much, you guys. I am just so proud. I get so passionate. Like, I don't know, a mother. To all of our mothers out there, happy Mother's Day just passed this Sunday. I celebrate all of our creative entrepreneurs. You have a question, you have a desire to learn something. Maybe you've done something all your life and you're ready to try a new skill or imagine that vision that you've had and you're ready to do it. Check us out. You can check out the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship at our website. You can also log on to our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and stay in tune with us. You never know who we're going to bring to you live to talk. And again, if you have any questions, you want to see something that you haven't seen that we're not doing, keep us honest, let us know, and we'll be sure to bring it to you. I'm Saudia Davis, the Director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. Make it a great week.